Hello and welcome to the Bee's Knees podcast. This is your host, PJ Ewing. Today we have a really wonderful interview between Mary Elliott and her patient, Jik Chin. Jik had an ORIF procedure done after falling on a scooter, off of a scooter, and in the end he came to Michigan from Canada to use the X10 machine for 10 days to solve the range of motion problem that he was having. Mr. Chen is a professor and educator at the University of Toronto. There's more about his background in the show notes at the episode webpage, but he really approached this whole thing from a scientific perspective and has a lot to say about the technology of the robot, the X10, and what it did for him. However, before we get into that, I have a piece of research to share with you. The article is entitled, Leg Exercise is Critical to Brain and Nervous System Health. This was published in the summer of 2018, but I thought it would be relevant for us to review it somewhat quickly here because it really has some real important commentary on you and your leg exercising, your movement, and the rest of your system, the rest of your body. So let's quickly go through the study right now. This article, again, is entitled, Leg Exercise is Critical to Brain and Nervous System Health. It was published June 7th, 2018. It was in the featured news section of the publication Neuroscience. The piece was written by Rachel Bishop, who is a Frontiers science writer. The subhead of the article is, In a New Take on the Exercise Truism, Use It or Lose It, researchers show neurological health is an interactive relationship with our muscles and our world. Groundbreaking research shows that neurological health depends as much on signals sent by the body's large leg muscles to the brain as it does on directives from the brain to the muscles. Published in Frontiers in Neuroscience, the study fundamentally alters brain and nervous system medicine, giving doctors new clues as to why patients with motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis, for example, spinal muscular atrophy, and other neurological diseases often rapidly decline when their movement becomes limited. In quotes, our study supports the notion that people who are unable to do load-bearing exercises, such as patients who are bedridden or even astronauts on extended travel, not only lose muscle mass, but their body chemistry is altered at the cellular level, and even their nervous system is adversely impacted, said Dr. Raffaella Adami from the Università degli Studi di Milano in Italy. The article goes into some detail about the study with mice and how they got the data that they did. But one of the important things that I noted was this quote, It is no accident that we are meant to be active, to walk, run, crouch, to sit, and use our leg muscles to lift things, says Adami. Neurological health is not a one-way street with the brain telling the muscles lift, walk, and so on. The researchers gained more insight by analyzing individual cells. They found that restricting exercise lowers the amount of oxygen in the body, which creates an anaerobic environment and alters metabolism. Reducing exercise also seems to impact two genes, one of which, and this is what it's called, CDK5RAP1, is very important to the health of mitochondria, the cellular powerhouse that releases energy the body can then use. Okay, another good quote. Another quote from a different doctor in this case. I have been interested in neurological diseases since 2004, says co-author Dr. Daniele Bottai, also from the Università degli Studi di Milano. The question I asked myself was, is the outcome of these diseases due exclusively to the lesions that form on the spinal cord in the case of spinal cord injury and genetic mutation in the case of SMA, or is the lower capacity for movement the critical factor that exacerbates the disease? The research shows that using the legs, particularly in weight-bearing exercises, sends signals to the brain that are vital for the production of healthy neural cells, essential for the brain and nervous system. Cutting back on exercise makes it difficult for the body to produce new nerve cells, some of the very building blocks that allow us to handle stress and to adapt to challenge in our lives. So they're suggesting that this is just the beginning of the study. But what I thought was worthy of sharing with all of you guys is that we're really just looking at leg exercise, which we all care about, particularly if we have knee questions, knee difficulties, having had knee surgeries, for example, and the fact that it's not just about getting your legs to move for your own mobility. It has more impact than we thought before. So leg exercise is critical to brain and nervous system health. And this just supports a lot of research that suggests if you're not mobile, things start to decline in your whole system. We have some blogs and articles that you can go back and listen to or read about this topic written by a nurse on our team named John McKay. But it just is more evidence that supports that motion is lotion, move it or lose it. And in this case, the lack of mobility and lack of ability to move, lack of the ability to do leg exercises, this can negatively impact your overall system, your brain and nervous system health. So with that, quick little look at some research, and I'll share the link to the study that you can read yourself in the, again, the episode webpage and the show notes. Let's get on to the interview that Mary did with her patient, Jik Chin.
Welcome to The Bee's Knees, a podcast full of articles, interviews, clinical studies, and advice about knee surgery, physical therapy, and life after knee surgery.
Hi, I'm Mary Elliott from X10, and I'm here today speaking with a very special person who has agreed to share his beautiful story with us. He's actually from Toronto, Canada, and he came to Michigan to use the X10 machine for his recovery. And he's got a very interesting story and recovery, and he's going to begin sharing that with you. Hi, Jik, how are you?
Hi, great to be here.
Jik, why don't we start off by you telling us your name, where you come from, and your story on how we came to know each other.
All right, my name is Jik Chin, and I was born in Los Angeles, actually. So I was born an American. My father was a diplomat, and but anyway, fast forward in Toronto. And I enjoy riding kick scooters, electric kick scooters. These are very popular, I think, in the US. And I bought a couple of them, and I've been riding them all over the place until I fell down and broke my patella into multiple fragments. And I was, in the emergency, called 911, and surgeon said, we need an operation right away. I didn't know the surgeon, but he did a, wonderful job of putting all of those together with pins and wires, and he called it ORIF surgery. And in addition, he said that I had a rip in the tendon in front of the patella, because, as you can imagine, if you fall on a concrete going 25 kilometers an hour, you're going to break the bone as well as rip the tendon. And it was a tricky operation, having to stitch the tendon as well as to put the bones together. And he said, well, Jik, you can't do anything for the next 6 weeks. Don't move your knees, which apparently is a bad thing for scar tissues. They have a big head start, and I couldn't do anything about it. But thankfully, after 4 weeks, he looked at my knee, and when I told him that I wasn't in pain, he said, now it's time for physiotherapy. Let's do some physiotherapy. And so we started some physiotherapy, a wonderful physiotherapist. She was compassionate, kind, gentle, but pretty strong when it comes to bending my knees. And, being a scientist, I'm a chemistry professor at the University of Toronto, and being a scientist, I really wanted to know what is the latest and greatest that technology has to offer when it comes to knee therapy. We live in an age where, iPhones come up with new versions every year, Samsung. We don't live in a dial phone age anymore. And so I really did a lot of research into what's out there in terms of what's the latest and what's the greatest. And to my disappointment, I couldn't really see anything new. Like, a lot of them were old technologies and clamps and fixing the angle of your knees and your elbows and things like that. But, nothing that is computerized and nothing that is like futuristic, until I came across a robot called X10 therapy. And the first few videos that I saw were testimonials, kind of like the testimonial that I'm doing now. And they were like really wonderful, but I really wanted some hard fact, Why is this so special? What is it so wonderful about this? What is so magical? Is there something magical that will fix my knee? Because my knee was fixed for 4 weeks and it wouldn't want to bend.
But before you go forward, Jik, explain didn't you wear a brace, and for how long? You were placed in a brace, right?
So I was wearing the brace for, I was told to wear it for 6 weeks, and I wore it for 4 weeks, and the doctor said, well, let's start, moving away from the brace and start bending, because I think your bones have healed. And so after 4 weeks, it was like that, and there was 2 weeks of physiotherapy. And in the meantime, those 2 weeks, that's how I found out about X10. And going back to your question, that's ultimately when I thought I have to go to Michigan and try this out. And the thing that really got me interested and made a lot of sense when I did research into it is, well, with all due respect to humans, robots, some things robots are better than humans, and that is, one is repetition. I can ask a robot to repeat something 1 million times. A human, maybe 10 times, maybe 20 times, and they'll get mad at me, right? More importantly, a robot has precision. No human, myself included, I'm a scientist, I like precision, but I can't bend my angle to whatever degrees that I want. To 72 degrees, to 85 degrees, to 101 degree. Whatever you want, the robot will do it precisely, reproducibly, with repetition as many times as you want. And then thirdly, in terms of precision, is the force that you use. I can't reproducibly use exactly the same amount of force to bend my knees, or I can't trust anyone to bend my knees in a predictable way. And so a robot does that with 1 pound of force, 2 pounds of force, 3 pounds of force, 4 pounds of force. And what's beautiful about that is that force is completely proportional to pain. And basically what the robot is doing is really digitizing my pain. So, when somebody asks me, how much did it hurt? I say, a little bit. It hurt a lot. Or, so. What does that really mean? This robot digitizes it in a reproducible way, 1 million times, 1,000 times, 100 times, whatever you want. And so it allows me to work at, when I came to Michigan, my bending of my knee was at about 70 degrees. And if I really, really painfully push it, it was going up to 80. And so I needed a robot to play around where I can maximize the bending. So there's no point in me working on 50 degrees when I can bend to 80 degrees. There's no point in me trying to go from 80 to 100. That's going to be way too much force, way too painful. And so having this machine in Michigan, in my hotel room, I could experiment with all of these different levels of forces and work on my weaknesses to get my bending going. But that's only one part of the story. That's like passive motion. And it was really wonderful to not have this amazing robot working for me, but coaches not only inspiring me, but showing me all the details of how to use the robot to strengthen my hamstring, to strengthen my quads, strengthen my calves. And that synergistically helped my range of motion, I feel.
Well, let me interrupt for a minute. When you say coaches, is that an X10 coach you're referring to?
Yes. Lisa and Erin, coaches who knew a lot about X10 and told me how to use the X10 to strengthen my muscles and, how best to get the most out of my little robot, right? So, in a couple of days, I have to go back to Toronto, and I will miss my little robot.
Okay, the X10 recovery system, right, not only provides you with a machine, but also an X10 coach. Can you tell me how you appreciated, or what service or what benefit and value did your X10 coach provide to you?
So what was amazing about X10 therapy is that not only do we have this wonderful robot that can do these repetition with precision, whether it is the force, whether it is the angles, but they also provided me with human interaction, with compassion, with understanding. They really also, like a coach should do. Robots aren't very good at inspiring you or telling you what to do. And this is where it's good that at least there are some things that humans can do better than robots. Now there are plenty, right? And this is becoming, making eye-to-eye contact and being inspired and coach cheering you on, because at the end of the day, robots make life easy. That doesn't mean that your knee will be fixed entirely by the robot by itself. You have to put a lot of effort, and having a human coach who really pushes you and inspires you and encourages you, as well as to give you technical details of how to use the robot to maximize your benefits. This is something that X10 therapy provided for me that I found was really useful.
Okay, so now that you mentioned being motivated and inspired, right, by your coach, let me ask you this. On the X10 machine, the capability you had by looking at your screen and seeing your results as you were working on all your sessions, how motivating was that? Was that a factor in motivating you to know where you were at and how far you were progressing?
Oh my God! I'm glad you asked that. I think it's human nature, but particularly as a scientist, when you do an experiment, you want the results now. But often you have to wait a month. Often you have to wait a year to get the result, do the experiment, but the results come out late. By the time the results come out, you've lost your motivation. You've lost your interest in that experiment sometimes. The beauty of X10 robot is that it's a touch screen. You get to control. It's very user-friendly. It's very intuitive. And you get your result in real time as you do the experiment. So you get to see how much force is being used that translate to how much discomfort or pain. You can select and dial in your pain as little or as much as you want. But it's to your interest to not put too much pain because that causes swelling that goes against bending and so forth. But you get to go from pound 1 to pound 2 to pound 3 to pound 4. And let's say 1, 2, 3, it causes no pain. Pound 4 causes a little bit of discomfort. Pound 10 causes quite a bit of pain. But quite a bit of pain can give you the angle that you want in a shorter period of time, but it may cause swelling. So all of these experiments that you can do, you see on the screen in real time. And so this is why I compare X10 robot, when I compare it to something like a CPM, for example, It's like comparing a dial phone to an iPhone X. That one, yes, they both can make calls and you can contact your friends with those phones. But the other one is so much powerful. It's computerized, it's automated, it's so helpful to find where your limits are in terms of your personal pain threshold. We all have different pain thresholds. And this X10 machine allows me to find where that threshold is and where my bending threshold is, because that's where I want to work on to increase the bending and improve my physical ability. Because I really like walking, I like playing golf, I like doing exercises, I walk 7 or 8 miles a day, and all of a sudden, when all of this had to stop, it's just not my knee by itself. Obviously my heart is not getting a good workout, so I'm not as tired to get a good night's sleep. And so this little knee, it took me over 60 years to find out how important a patella is, or any other part of your body. If it's not functioning properly, it affects your whole mind and body and spirit.
I'm so glad you went there, because as you were talking, right, that's what was going around in my mind. Because listen, to be physically fit, right, your knee health plays an important part of that. And also, my goodness, when you become vulnerable from pain, right, because pain makes you vulnerable, right, it doesn't just affect you physically, but it affects you mentally. And if you do not have those two parts of you moving forward successfully and powerfully, you're going to have some complications come in. So can you elaborate? You and I had a conversation about a week ago regarding pain and what you appreciated about the X10 when it came to pain.
My physiotherapist, amazing physiotherapist that she is, she would say, don't fight back when she's bending my knee. And I'm not trying to fight back. It's an unconscious reaction when someone who is going to apply force and pain in your already damaged knee, it's just a knee-jerk reaction, and she would hold my good leg, because my good leg will unconsciously kick out and lash out. And so all of these things are happening, and I found all of that disappears when you're working with a machine, because you set the dial and the dial is reproducible. I can't tell my physiotherapist, no matter how good she is, hey, can you repeat that what you just did 2 minutes ago, or 10 minutes ago, or 1 hour ago? That was just the right pressure. Or can you apply a little bit more pressure than what you did just a minute ago, or a little bit less? And this is what's so useful about a robot, where everything is digitized and you do it, and the robot obeys your command in high definition. It's not analog, it's digital, it's in high definition, because it breaks pain into many, many different steps, from not painful at all to mildly discomfortable to all the way to highly painful in a reproducible way. There's really nothing like it out there, and I was delighted. I was surprised that someone actually thought of this and got it out.
That's beautiful, isn't it? Well, what you had said to me last week, and I probably won't remember it word for word, but I thought it was so beautiful and meaningful what you were communicating to me, that when it comes to pain, it's much more tolerable if you're in control of it, right? When you feel you have control of it.
This is what I mean about the knee-jerk reaction, where, unless I'm relaxed, my physiotherapist can't help me. But I tense up because I'm imagining the pain that is not there yet. I'm anticipating pain because there is uncertainty in the pressure and the pain that is to come when it is applied by a human. But if it is under your control and it is digitized, and it is coming from a robot, then it is predictable. I'm relaxed. I'm ready for pound number 3. I'm ready for pound number 4 because I set the dial, right? So when you're in control, you feel much more at ease. And so I think your mind plays games with you that you actually feel a lot more pain than it is there if it is unpredictable. But if it is predictable, then you get what you ask for, and it's manageable.
Okay, so you've used the X10 for about 10 days right now. Okay, what would you say was the most surprising thing that came out of these 10 days for you while you've been using the X10 for your recovery?
So there are a number of things. The first day, I was shown how to use the instrument. Marty showed me how to use it, and then once he left, I was in the hotel room all by myself with the robot, where I could experiment whatever I wanted. And so I could actually push the robot to push and bend my knee as much as it could without pain. And by doing that repeatedly, because this robot, as rock solid as it looks, it's very gently moving my legs back and forth very slowly, 1 minute per bend type of thing. And I think it's because of that I was able to get 5 or 6 more degrees than the day before, right off the bat. And so that was like really encouraging. And then after a few days, there was continuous progress. And up until that point, I wasn't able to use any of the machines in the exercise room. And all of a sudden, I could use it. And it was the first time in 6-7 weeks since the operation that I was able to get a full workout. Not only was it good for my knee, I think it was good for my brain because my blood circulation was really wonderful. And my heart rate was pumping. It was really good. That allowed me to sleep really well, right? So it's not just helping my knee, but my whole well-being. So that surprised me, the effect of. And so when I go back to Toronto, and I hope that one of these days we'll be able to have X10 in Canada. But until then, what is my takeaway is that I'm learning how to be as patient as the robot. And if I can be as gentle and as patient as the robot, even for 10 minutes, the robot will do it for me for hours. But if I can do it for 10 minutes, I'll get some benefit. That's my takeaway going to Toronto.
Okay, and when you say you went to the gym downstairs, what type of equipment were you able to use now after using this machine for 10 days that you couldn't when you got here?
It's an elliptical machine. I got a full workout with that, and of course we can progress from that to the bicycle, the stationary bicycle. So there's a whole challenges ahead of me. But it's really the first step that I was able to get a full workout for half an hour on an elliptical, first time in 2 months, and that made a big difference.
So, Jik, you use the machine for your range of motion, right? Getting yourself more flexible, being able to bend, because your issue was not being able to bend your knee. When you got here, what do you say we were capable of bending your knee at when you got to Michigan?
It's around 70.
70 degrees flexion.
Right.
And extension, you were fine, right? You could straighten your leg without an issue.
Extension was fine. But I could see, using the machine, that it's just as good for extension as for flexion. Exactly the same strategy.
And two, knowing that you could customize your routines on the machine since you didn't necessarily need it for the extension, right? You could focus on the flexion on the machine. How empowering was that for you too, right?
So it is that flexibility that each patient has their own difficulties and challenges to overcome. And even though I didn't need any help with the extension, it was good to just stretch my leg out because I was just working on bending and bending and bending. And then every once in a while, I asked the robot, can you stretch out my leg a little bit? And it did so. And then, of course, the other part is the active move where the robot stands back, does nothing, and asks me to do the bending and the stretching. This is the active move that's really building my muscles. And I found that equally interesting that the robot can do. And there again, you can control your pain level with your pound. So you can put, if you can't move actively with 1 pound, or 2 pound, or 3 pound, you control that. So each patient, as they develop, as they increase in strength, as they increase in range and motion, they continuously interact with the robot, and the robot adapts for you to make continuous improvement.
Okay, so when you say active, so what was happening is you were doing some sessions on the X10 that we call strengthening. But also what was happening is when you're moving the leg of the machine, you're contracting your quads, your hamstrings, your calf muscles. So as you were doing that, I know you were seeing the numbers on the computer screen. I'm sure that was incredibly encouraging. But how were you feeling? And did you notice functionally, at what point did you notice, wow, I can do this now, and I wasn't able to do that?
That's true. This is the nice thing about the robot, where there's a lot that the coach taught me how to use this and that. But even when she didn't mention anything, when I was doing passive range and motion, your own curiosity makes you want to press and lift and so forth. And you see these numbers flickering, showing, even when you're doing range of motion passively, it tells you if you choose to do it actively, it tells you how many pounds of force that you're using. And so you see your strength grow from day to day by looking at those numbers. Oh, yesterday I was doing actively only up to 80 degrees. Now I'm doing it up to 85. And now I'm actually pushing at 90 degrees and pushing even more. And you can see that appear in terms of how many pounds of force that you're using. So not only do you get to see the pounds of force that the robot is using on you, but the robot says, okay, now it's your turn. And when I start using it with my force, it tells you, oh, you're using 1 pound, you're using 2 pounds, you're getting stronger. And so, again, the robot does those numerically and factually encourages the patient. Not in the same way that humans do,
For sure. Okay, so yes, having that data available to you while you're using the machine definitely worked in your favor as far as keeping you motivated and encouraged, right? Because you saw positive results. And I really, too, I'd love for you to let people know how you were feeling functionally now in your day-to-day activities. In a 10-day period of time, you noticed some things changed, right? What were those things?
So I feel that I'm walking a lot faster, and I'm moving my legs a lot faster when I walk. And sometimes I make progress and I don't realize it. And that's when my wife tells me, oh, you're walking like you used to.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's when I go, oh yeah, that's right. I made those improvements over the last 10 days.
Well, having increased your quad strength, because in 10 days' time you've doubled your quad strength, and you have increased your hamstring strength 1.5 times. You need strength, right, for stamina. Would you say now you're walking farther too, for longer periods of time too? Have you noticed that difference?
Absolutely. My Fitbit tells me that. Okay. So my Fitbit tracks my walking, and when I got my knee injured, my Fitbit says, how come you're not exercising anymore? It doesn't know that I was amazed that Fitbit noticed that I wasn't really exercising anymore. And he says, you got to exercise for your health. And I couldn't talk back to Fitbit, but now that I'm doing all of these exercises, it does show up on Fitbit in terms of my heart rate. My resting heart rate is going down. And it's thanks to all the exercises that the robot is helping me do, those exercises that I was not able to do. Fitbit tells me that I'm now doing sometimes 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers, which is like, I guess, 4 miles or something like that. So half as much as I used to walk when I was healthy. And so, yes, I see improvements along those lines as well. Sometimes we take it for granted and I don't realize that I'm walking that much.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure, right? Honestly, I know this empowers you, the increases you've made, but it empowers us too. Because the reason why we all do what we do is we really, really get excited about seeing people recover and recover well, right? And it's not just the physical part we see, the change within all of you, but what happens to you mentally and emotionally. We see someone, we meet them first and there's a lot of anxiousness and a lot of fear, but then all of a sudden when that machine is ready to be picked up and you're ready to go back home, we see a vibrant, right, empowered person who's ready and feels like they had a challenge and they conquered it. It's so beautiful, this whole journey.
This is the first time that I'm doing a testimonial ever about anything at my age. And when I was first considering the possibility of doing a testimonial, I was like, I've never done this before. But the more I thought about it, what I received is so much that I had to do something about this amazing technology that is out there. And the sense that I get from this is this is an ongoing technology that is developing. Just like, as I mentioned, the cell phones and the smartphones are developing day to day, this is something that is making amazing leaps and bounds. And I really look forward to the future of this technology. And also that a lot of patients are involved as part of research, that how many hours of work and how they work with this robot is improving. All of this is going into the database, and eventually it'll be part of artificial intelligence. It'll be part of computer data and development of hardware and technology, and it requires obviously doctors and engineers and different disciplines to work together. And I'm just so grateful that there is such a machine in this world.
Thank you, Jane. We're grateful for you right back. Grateful, so grateful. And I know you had a 5-hour drive to get here to Michigan. You rented a hotel room to use the machine. Honestly, we are honored, right, to be a part of your recovery team. Well, let's see. You and I have covered a lot of bases together. Do you feel, is there anything else you'd like to share with somebody out there? First of all, what was your actual surgery? I don't think I had a clear understanding. What actually happened? What did the surgeon actually do to repair?
So he called this, there's a name for this surgery, and he called it ORIF, O-R-I-F, ORIF surgery of the knee. And basically ORIF stands for Open Reduction Internal Fixation. Open meaning you open the knee. Reduction means you gather together all the bones that have been broken and spread apart. So you have to reduce it. And then fix it. Fix it with wires and metals and screws and pins. Fix it, and it's an internal fixation. And this kind of surgery can be done with your hands, with your elbows, but this is ORIF of the knee. That's what he said. And then he said not all people with this surgery have their tendons torn. But in your case, because you fell off a e-kick scooter, you broke your tendons, and he said it was more tricky for him to stitch those ripped tendons. And so, these things take a while to heal, especially the tendons. The bones at least has been fixed with the metal, but the soft tissues require more time to. And so this is why. But he did give me permission when I told him I'm going to Michigan to get this special treatment. And he says, I don't know a lot about it, but go and give it a try and report back to me how it went. But he gave me full blessing and said, don't worry about, something going wrong with the surgery and the tendons being ripped and so forth, where the stitches were. Do the best you can to get full range of motion, which meant 120 degrees. Go after it and let me know how it went after you come back.
Well, how wonderful that he supported you. That I'm sure helped, right?
Yes.
Helped
yes.
you mentally.
Yes.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yes.
Well, that's beautiful. And, when you think back, how many weeks ago was this surgery for you, Jik? How many weeks?
So, it was early May, so May 14th, so it's probably about 8 weeks now. And it was a good thing that I got it in May because I start teaching in September. And, some of my students are very creative, very energetic, and ask some very challenging questions. And I don't want to be limping around from lecture room to lecture room and be all tired to answer those questions from those bright 20-year-olds.
Well, if there is something I have learned about you, and that is you are a very dedicated, hard-working man. Oh my gosh, Jik, honestly. The way you've used this machine, the open-mindedness, the positive energy you've placed in this, no matter what challenge you've encountered, really attributes to your success too. Wouldn't you say that? I mean, honestly.
Well, thank you. But I think there were a lot of people who motivated me. My students motivate me. You guys at X10 Therapy motivate me a lot. And my family, of course. And, you really can't do it alone. And this technology has been amazing help.
I think sometimes people are so independent that they feel like reaching out for help, it makes them weak. And it isn't. It is honestly, it takes strength and courage to recognize, hey, I can't do this alone. I do need help, right? Didn't that empower you by reaching out and asking for help and allowing people to help you?
Yes, and I think part of it is that X10 Therapy staffs made it really easy. To me, it was a very comfortable environment, being a scientist myself in a research environment, and this was really like a genuine research environment where I could talk to scientists who are very much involved in the statistics of it, and like Dr. Carl Freeman. And frankly, I was a bit scared being in Canada and this machine, this robot, not being super available to the millions of people who get surgery. And it's not even in Canada. It's not even approved in Canada. The insurance doesn't even cover it in Canada. And so I was sure that I won't have access to it. So I did the research and I thought, what a wonderful machine, but I'll never get on it. But thankfully, PJ Ewing answered my question, and then the ball started rolling. And within a few days, I got to meet the inventor, Paul Ewing, of this amazing robot. And so that's a huge bonus. So you talk about reaching out. Sometimes we're vulnerable and we don't want to bother anybody. With my problems. Nobody else has my problems. Why should I go and bother anybody? But this environment, a positive environment, and be genuinely interested in seeing how this technology can help my knees, made it easier for me to approach you guys and say, hey, what do you think about this? Can we have lunch together? Can we have this discussion? And it was amazing how forthcoming everybody was.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Just as a minor little thing, people talk about self-driving cars, and that's all kind of part of robotics, and incredibly interesting and important work that Elon Musk is working on and other people working in that area. But as far as this total knee replacement and ORIF, which is kind of a related surgeries, although they're different, and I think ORIF is more challenging to recover from because although total knee replacement requires probably more from a surgeon's point of view, there was really no damage to the tendons. And so their recovery, their bending and their extension would be easier. Mine is more challenging, and that's why I'm so much more surprised at the recovery that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis with this this tendon, torn tendon, as well as the broken kneecap. And so this robot, unlike in the self-driving cars is really technology for the future, and there's so many problems to solve there, to go there. In this case, it's already there. It's already better than us. It's already better in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of repetition, in terms of pain, using digital amount of force and being able to precisely control angle. Those are things that X10 therapy has already developed. And now it can continue to improve on it, but the core of it is already amazingly useful.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. No. I totally get where you're coming from. That's very, very, very beautiful, the way that you said that. Jik, one thing too, you spoke about the cars. I don't want anybody to misinterpret anything. On the machine, you do decide. You are the one, right? The patient decides when they move further, when they're ready. The machine guides you, right? Gives you guidance and indicates to you, hey, based on what I'm reading from what you're doing with me right now, I can see that, yes, you can move further. Would you like to? And then you make the final decision, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So there, I think it all depends on the individual. My problem so far, thankfully, hasn't been swelling. So even if I put a lot of pressure on my knee to bend, applying a lot of force, which then translates to pain, I could experiment with that in the privacy of my own hotel room with the robot. I can ask it to do that. I don't have to do that, but I can ask it to do that and then see how much it bends. Other people who may have swelling problems wouldn't do that and shouldn't do that, I would imagine. So this is, again, the beauty of the robot, that it is flexible. It depends on the person. It depends on their strengths and weaknesses. It'll be able to adjust. But ultimately, as you say, it is us who have absolute power. It's not the robot that has power over us. We have the power over the robot to control the pain, control the force, control the angle. And that's the beauty of it, X10.
I do want to ask you something. As you were speaking, I did think of something. There's a trend going on now with recovery, knee recovery. And the trend is, for the patient to go home right from the hospital. Sometimes they don't even stay overnight. They send them home right after the surgery, a few hours after. And then they begin outpatient physical therapy, right? Which consists typically 3 to 2 times a week, sometimes 5. And then, everyone does their home exercises. How much more valuable would you say your sessions were in regards to that and doing exercises on your own or exercises with your therapist? What would you say? Where is the difference? Where is the value?
Well, that's a great benefit. That's a great question, because I was thinking about it again when I was in Toronto. As great as my physiotherapist is, I get to see her only twice a week. And I have to drive over to the hospital to do that. There were some other patients there in the hospital where the physiotherapist visited them, as you mentioned, a couple of times a week or 3 times a week. It's immensely useful to have this in your bedroom or in your living room, and absolutely free to do as many hours as you want or as little as you want. you may have a day where you want to take a day off. You may want to go and visit people. And having it in the room is immensely useful. So just to summarize, right? Those things that the robot are reproducible, the robot controls your the poundage, which you control your pain, you control the angle, you get immediate real-time response of all of those results that you're interacting with the robot. And then on top of that, you have the convenience of using it at any time at home. You can get up at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want, and you feel like, oh, I'm not sleepy, I want to do a little bit of brush up. 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a 35-minute. It doesn't have to, if a physiotherapist comes to your door, you can't say, hey, let's just do 2 minutes and I'll see you 2 hours later. So it's the flexibility and the commitment is really wonderful. So there are just so many advantages.
Yeah, so do you feel that's really why in 10 days' time you were able to really increase? Really, how many degrees did you increase in your?
So at the end of the day, I feel that I'm a pretty impatient guy. And if something is painful and I see either no result or results that I cannot see, then as impatient as I am, it's very difficult to get motivated and do it over and over and over again. It's because of all of the above that I get to see the result immediately, and it is not painful, that you can control the pain, it is not up to somebody else, that, when I have lunch, I go, oh, let me just try this for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And that 10 minutes sometimes translates to an hour and a half straight working on it, because it is so interesting. What your knee is doing with this robot is so interesting.
Really, what you're saying is, wow, this machine gave you freedom, right?
Yes.
Freedom to move forward the way you wanted to, the way you felt your leg needed to, yes. Right? Because only you can feel what's going on in your leg and how it's feeling. Yes. And only you really have clarity on that as to how far you can push it, right? So all those
and let's face it, we still have to work hard. At the end of the day, we have to work hard. But you work hard if you believe in what you're doing. If you are seeing the result, and if this is making progress, then you do it. And so you asked me how many degrees that I was able to increase. I was able to go from 80 degrees to 100 degrees. I can push to 105. Actually, it's also what the machine is interesting is it allows you to experiment with a little bit of cheating, a little bit of lifting of the hip, and see what it takes to go to 130, what it takes to go to 120. Again, this is a robot that you can work with in the privacy of your own home, and it doesn't harm anybody to try that and be inspired. I can do this and go to 130 degrees. I can't quite do it properly to 130 degrees today, but by experimenting like this, you can almost foresee, I'm not that far from doing this. In a few days, I should be able to do this. Again, that kind of experiment, that kind of freedom, you don't have with anything but a robot.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. All right. Well, I thank you for today. I thank you for coming to America and using the machine. We really appreciate getting to know you, and we are so excited for your progress. And I'm sure now life looks a lot brighter, right? You're going to go back home, right? Feeling more confident, more energetic, more free to do the things you love to do, right? Walking. And are you going to hop on a scooter anytime too soon?
That's what I've been.
What do you do about that?
As I'm getting better, I'm thinking more and more. I'll start slowly, and maybe stay there. But having seen what this machine can do, it'll be a pity if we can't really have this in Canada. I would love to share this with my other patients in the hospital. And there are so many of them who would love this.
This gentleman was stuck. A lot of good things happened to him over a very short period of time, and he was able to analyze the whys and hows of what happened so clearly from his academic background. It was fun to hear. We don't often get a patient with such expertise as Mr. Chen has, and I was just delighted to listen to that, and I hope that you found a lot of value there. It's something that we at our X10 organization are going to be listening to and reviewing a lot because it sheds a tremendous amount of light about what is happening when someone's using this device and why they're getting such tremendous results. I'm very glad you found time to listen to that interview. I'll see you next time.
We'd like to thank a few friends of the Bee's Knees podcast, including the Knee Pain Guru, natural solutions for chronic knee pain without drugs, shots, surgery, or painful physical therapy. For more info, visit thekneepainguru.com. We're also brought to you by X10 Therapy. And special thanks to Dr. Justin Trosclair at the podcast A Doctor's Perspective Podcast.
I'm Dr. Justin Trosclair, host of two-time Podcast Awards nominated A Doctor's Perspective Podcast. I interview doctors in and out of my profession about their specialties and the occasional non-doctor special guests. But we also go behind the curtain and see what's working for their marketing, overcoming struggles, practical knowledge, book choices, and relationship advice. Join me on any podcast app on your phone or visit adoctorsperspective.net for the show notes pages and free resources. I want you to have an abundant home life as well as a thriving practice. So come on, take a listen.
The Bee's Knees podcast comes to you from our studio in Lower Manhattan, New York City. We're here week in and week out shedding light on all aspects of knee surgery and recovery. To reach us, send an email to thebeeskneespodcast@gmail.com.